So this is great, guys. Thanks for coming back. And we're really excited to start week 2. And I think we're starting week 2 pretty much the way we started week 1 with the Vancouver Aquarium and our really good friend, Nicole.
Hey,
We're
hi
going
everyone.
we're going to learn about coral reefs, which is an amazing, oh yes, Declan and Mila, great for grade 1 and 3, because we're talking about the ecosystem. Sometimes on the website it says different grades, but we really know most of these sessions are okay from anybody that's in grade kindergarten to grade 8 or older. It depends on, we're watching the stingrays, which is really great and really cool. So Nicole, I guess knowing your audience is mostly elementary students. Woohoo! Yes, Tegan.
Hey.
So we're going to turn it over to you and we will see you guys in a few minutes. And remember, we're going to have questions at halfway through and then at the end.
Sure, thank you, Melly. And good afternoon or good morning, depends where you're from. My name is Nicole and I'm from Vancouver, Korea, which is managed by the Ocean Wise Conservation Association. And here I am at the Vancouver Korea in British Columbia. And I'm really happy to share my knowledge and my experience here in this traditional land of the Coast Salish people, including Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. So now I am standing in front of our shark habitats, and as part of the coral reef, there's a lot of animals here that is welcoming us. And we have sharks right here, and we have our superstar here called Skuna. It's a sea turtle that is rescued near the coastal area in British Columbia. So she doesn't belong to those cold water, but she happens to be in that part while we discover her. So we decide to take care of her and then try to let our public to know more about coral reefs as well as sharks and sea turtles right here. So today we're going to talk about coral reefs, but before the start of the activities, I would like you to really stand up a little bit and do some exercises with me, because now is 8 a.m. here in Vancouver. It's super early, and I think most of you are actually having a good time in the east side of Canada as well. So I would like you to stand up and try to do some stretching, do some yoga with me before really dive into the topics of today's. And the first thing I would like you to do is I want you to do some yoga with me. So sometimes yoga guru, they are actually inspired from the environment and also the nature side. So they try to mimic some of the animals and also the environment so that you learn more about the nature and try to immerse themselves inside that very nice environment they are in. So I want you to do something that related to coral reefs and also the animals inside. So I want you to do something like this. So stick your arms and also your hands out. And then you try to slide it to the right for 5 seconds. And this is called the sea cucumber pose. That sea cucumber usually been seen in coral reefs, and they are very elongated, and they are actually black in color, and they move around just like we do now, and they try to find a food. So try to do the other side. Stretch a little bit for 5 more seconds. Then you go back to the original pose, and that is the sea cucumber pose. And I have one more pose for you to try on, is that you try to place one of your legs to right here, and try to stay really stable, and then try to put up your arms like this again, and try to stretch way up. And then we call this tree pose, or in ocean, we call it the corals pose. So try to hold your pose as much as you can. seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And now Skuna is right up there and looking at us for the yoga. And now we're more energetic and we know that sea cucumber as well as we have corals are actually living in the environment that the sea turtles as well as the sharks that are living in. So without further ado, let's dive into the topics today. So we're going to talk about the corals. For corals, they are really colorful. They usually live near shallow water in tropical and subtropical area where the water temperature is around 21 to 29 degrees Celsius. So for those corals, they are amazing because they comprise of large area in the sea and they have a lot of different kind of superpowers that help human and also for the ocean. So right now, I would like to share with you a video that can show you how amazing those coral reefs are. Right. So this is one of the coral exhibit that we have here. So we'll see there's different kind of corals sitting on the ground and also around the area. And we have fishes around. Usually we have sea stars, we have sea cucumber, as well as sharks, sea turtles around as well. That's amazing. And for those corals, they're actually colorful because there's something that actually gives those colors. So we're going to talk about it later. But what are corals? So let me ask you a question. What do you think for corals? Are they animals or are they plants? So feel free to type in your answer on the chat box to let me know. Are corals animals or are they plants? Animals. Plankton, plants. Animals because they are alive. Animals. Oh, so cool. So for corals, they're actually kind of an animal. So they start off with a little worm in the ocean, just a little bit of worm like this. It feels smaller than my finger. So what they do is actually when they are floating around the water, they try to find a place that is more stable and more safe for them to stick on. So what they do is actually they will try to anchor themselves to the ground and then they will go bigger and bigger and try to find nutrients around. So what they do is actually they try to absorb a lot of calcium around them. So seawater, they have calcium ions inside. So for the corals, they would try to find a lot of calcium and try to build their houses. So it's a very hard structure so that to protect themselves. So now I want you to stand up again, and we're trying to learn how those corals, as well as known as the polyp, how they actually find their food. So stand up a little bit and then try to follow me. As a little polyp, just staying near the ground, what you do is you have to stick out your finger-like tentacles up to the ocean, to the water, and you try to move along from side to side while your finger is moving. And then you try to find food like planktons, like super tiny microorganisms, and try to grab it and try to put it into your mouth to get energy. But for those energy, it's not enough. So what those the polyps do is actually they try to find their friends. So what they do is they find a lot of algae and put it onto their house. So imagine their house here. So for the little algae, we call it succinelli, they would try to stay with those coral around the polyp. So what they do is for those algae, they have chlorophyll, which is a pigment inside the body, and they try to make use of sunlight and turn the carbon dioxide into oxygen and also nutrients from time to time during the daytime. So by doing so, coral, the polyp inside, they can actually get extra nutrients in daytime just because they have friends like the algae to produce a lot of nutrients and also energy for them. So for daytime, they would try to grab their food and also try to get nutrients from their friends, that is the algae. And at night, they would try even harder by sticking out all the tentacles and grab as much plankton as they can and put it into their mouth. So this is how actually the polyps inside the corals actually try to find a food and try to find the nutrients. And with the very hard calcium house that they have, they can protect themselves as well. So for the corals, they have to be together in order to get extra protection. So what those corals and the polyps do is that they try to grow together and they try to get more calcium and build it around them so that they can make an even bigger and bigger house that can house a lot of polyps and try to protect the whole community. So as a little individual, when they try to find another individual like polyps together and they build a bigger house, we call them as the the corals community. So it's just like your community. So you have your own house, and beside you, you will have another house as well. So all houses, when they come together, it forms a community. So same as for the corals as well. They are actually building their own community. And if there's a lot of communities coming together, we will call it the corals reef because it's get bigger and bigger and it's more visible and it's provide even stronger protection for those animals too. So for Australia, they have very large area of coral reef. So I want to test you a little bit about that. You know the largest coral reef in Australia and what it is called? What is the name for the coral reef in Australia, which is the biggest one in the world? Yeah, Great Barrier Reef. You're right. So for Australia, they have the biggest area of coral reef, and some of the Australians up this space actually reported that they can actually see the largest coral reef there in Australia from the space. So it's amazing. It's the length of the reef can up to 2,600 kilometers. That's so big that a lot of animals, apart from coral reefs, apart from the polyps, they can actually hide and live inside. So for scientists, they are actually trying to know more about the coral reefs and try to know more about the ecology and ecosystem within. So they try to have a systematic classification for those corals, and I found the naming of the corals are very interesting that I would like to show you. So let me share my screen with you again. And I have actually saw a lot of different kind of corals during my snorkeling time, no matter in Hong Kong or in other countries in the tropical area. So now we have two kinds of corals right here, and the naming system is really, really fun. And for scientists, when they look at the left-hand picture here, It's yellow in color with a lot of floating substance right there. And they immediately think that it looks like something that we know. And yeah, we have an answer about that. It's like a brain, it's like a human brain. So that's why scientists actually name the corals on your left as brain coral. And it's a stony coral. It's made of really hard calcium structure around them. And for the left one, you can see it's like a disc like structure for this kind of corals. I would like to challenge you. Can you guess what is the name of this kind of coral? So for this kind of coral, we call this as the disc coral. So it's kind of like disc that you use, or if you listen to music, you will use disc. So that it actually looks like the disc that the scientists or even public actually know. So this kind of communication actually help with the naming system as well as to facilitate the communication between scientists and also the public. And we have other kind of corals as well. So we have another kind of this coral on the left, and then on the right it's it's kind of a very nice coral that we have in the tropical area, and it actually looks like something on a deer as well. So I want you to guess what is that name too. So I can give you a hint. It looks like something that is on a deer. Ooh, someone said this looks like a starfish. Ooh, something on a deer. It's a very good guess for you guys. So for that corals, we call it the Strahorns corals. It's similar to the antlers that the deer have. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure you guys know how to name some kind of corals now. I would like to let you know that actually for coral reef, because of their shapes and also their size and color, they can actually attract a lot of different kind of marine animals to come and try to find their food and also find their habitats there. So for corals, because they have different shapes, so they create cracks and also create different kind of holes and caves, so that for sharks, they can try to hide inside those coral in order to wait for a chance to get food, like fish, as well as for sea turtles, they can find habitats in order to stay and try to take a rest. So I've been to some coral community and tried to do snorkeling, and sometimes you can see those tiny sea animals like sea cucumber. They try to pretend they're actually a crack between the corals in order to camouflage by themselves. And for the whip ray just pass by, they try to stay on the ground as for most of the time in order to blend themselves with the coral's color and to protect themselves as well, or to hide and wait for a chance to eat something delicious. Yeah. So after that, I have talked about some of the coral's structure, and I would like to see if you have any question for the time being.
Nicole, thank you so much. Those were really great. Now, Tristan wanted to know, is a sea cucumber also known as a sea pickle? And I just have one request. The sound is a little glitchy, so if you can stay in one spot and not move too much, I think the sound is bouncing around in the aquarium a bit.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. It's okay. Is a sea cucumber also called a sea pickle?
Ooh, that's a good question that I never expect to have. So for sea cucumber, they do not have another name called sea pickles. Because the elongated shape that the sea cucumber have, so that's why they're actually named by scientists as the cucumber of the sea. So they are the sea cucumber, but not sea pickles.
Well, that good question though, because obviously Tristan knows that pickles are made from cucumbers. How Ethan would like to know, how often do coral die and how do they disintegrate? Oh, that's a great question.
Wow, that's a very nice question. So for corals, it depends on a lot of factors that affect their life in the ocean. So for example, well, if there's warmer temperature, even cold temperature, that they cannot adapt, so they will die immediately. And if there's a change in pH value for the ocean, for the seawater, it affects the corals as well. So for corals, they're actually living in the earth for a much long time, way before than human. And their growing rate is really slow. So for some of the corals, their growing rate would be 1 centimeters per year. So it's super slow. And that's why corals, they live here for for a very long time. And the mortal rate is not that high. And how they disintegrate is that they will not decompose by themselves, but rather, so for some of the coral fish, the fish in the corals, they actually try to eat those corals and try to break those corals reef down in order to recycle all the calcium as well as other nutrients to the ocean for other animals.
Excellent. And that kind of answers a little question. How are coral reefs created?
So for coral reefs, as we said before, then for the little polyps that is an individual, they would try to get nutrients like calcium atoms or ions from the ocean. And what they do is try to secrete a substance called calcium carbonate. And it's actually the same substance that you use as chalk, the chalk on the blackboard. So what they do is they try to secrete those substances and try to build a very strong habitat around those polyps so that they can protect themselves. So as they grow bigger and bigger, they will make their little house a bigger one using the calcium carbonate. And so coral reefs form.
Awesome. And there's some really big coral reefs and some small coral reefs as well. So Tegan, this is kind of a two-part question. Tegan would like to know, how many types of coral are there, and is some coral edible? From Matthew.
That is a very nice question. So for the species that we have, I do not have the exact number, but for scientists, they're really interested in knowing about more about the corals, and they keep on finding new species as well. So I would like to show you a picture about a very special kind of the corals. And they're actually not from tropical area or from some shallow water region, but rather they are actually found in the Deepsea area, which scientists only discovered in near 20 years ago. So I'm going to share that picture with you. So they are called the deep sea corals. So they can only be found in a very deep water region. So it's around 4,000 kilometers down from the surface. And you will see they do not have much color than those coral that we saw from the shallow water, but they do need nutrients. So they have tentacles as well in order to grab those their nutrients for their growth as well. But their growth rate is much more slower than the corals that we saw in tropical area. That is so cool that I just found that even in Canada, we do have deep sea coral as well.
I just want to remind people to, if they have a microphone that they can activate, um, to mute it. So we'll do one more question and then we'll do a little bit more presentation. So Rael, I think, is new to Connected North at Home, would like to know, do coral have predators and what are they if they do?
Cool. For corals, sometimes they are eaten by some kind of fish, like parrotfish, which they have really strong teeth in their mouth. So what they do is that they will crunch those corals and they will break those corals into smaller and smaller pieces, and they will just swallow it because there's nutrients inside. And for other kind of predators that corals have, is that some of the sea urchin that we have in tropical or subtropical area, sometimes they will crunch on those corals as well. And some of the area, just like in Hong Kong, for those sea urchin, they're actually destroying the habitat as well because there's a lot of corals there, and then because people there, they are actually trying to harvest a lot of sea cucumber as well as other animals, which the sea urchin may prey on. And because their prey disappeared, so the sea urchin try to feed on those corals, and there's a extensive damage in Hong Kong for the coral community. So they do have predators, and if those corals they have predators around, they're actually having stinging cells around them, so that they try to stick out their tentacles again, and then try to sting those animals and try to protect themselves a little bit. But for most of the time, they actually try to hide themselves within their calcium house in order to protect themselves as a whole.
Yes, it's really important to stay when you're diving, to be covered up completely when you're diving near coral. And yes, we're trying to fix the microphone issue, but we appreciate that. Let you guys letting us know. So over to you, Nicole, for the last little bit of our presentation.
Sure. So for coral reefs, they are actually very important habitat for a lot of animals, like the sea turtles just pass by, as well as the sharks, the stingray, as well as a lot of fish over there. And it's very important for human as well. So for China, there are a lot of people that is living near the coastal area. And what they need is the coral skeleton, just like this. Let me show you. So what those people living near the coastal need is that they actually collect corals from the beach, which is actually broken off or removed from the whole corals community. So what they do is they try to collect them and try to burn them and try to make carbon high the calcium carbonate and try to make their building materials as well as to use them as a building as the materials for making their own lunch, the bowl, as well as their cooking utensil as well. And apart from that, the people around the world are actually finding fish as well as their food like clams, as well as sea cucumber as food because they're rich in protein and nutrients. So that's why every year there's a lot of seafood being harvested in those coral reefs, so that to really suit the needs of those people around the world. So it's actually the economic source, as well as our nutrients, as well as our daily material, the materials that we need every day actually come from those corals. And as I mentioned before, for the corals, they are living with a kind of algae, and those algae actually helps to provide oxygen. So when you breathe in the air now, some of the oxygen that you just breathe is actually come from the ocean and come from those coral reefs. So that's why it's very important for us to really protect them. Nowadays, for corals, there are a lot of threats that they are facing, such as there is habitat destruction. So one of them is actually called overfishing. So this is a situation where fishermen, they would try to put or release a net that is very, very heavy to the sea bottom near the coral reefs. So what do the fishermen do is they try to drag the whole fishing net forward so that they can grab everything they have under the sea and to harvest them and to sell them in the market or for their livelihood. So that's why when they try to drag all the things in one go, all the corals are being removed and all those animals like fish or even sea turtles are being caught in one go. So by that time, after those fishing practice, coral reefs are being damaged and there's not much animals or even living things remain there in that coral community or even reefs. So remember, for corals, it takes thousands of years to grow in a shape that you saw from the pictures. So it's irreversible, is cause eternal damage to the ocean as well. And on the other side, because of the climate change, we have more carbon dioxide because of human activities, and those carbon dioxide actually dissolve into water, and it changed the pH value of the seawater. And there will be coral bleaching happening around the world where the algae decide to leave the coral skeleton and leave those coral as white color. And because of that, a lot of corals do not have enough nutrients and they die eventually. So because of the coral bleaching event, because of climate change, because of overfishing, because of habitat destruction, it's time for us to really think of something that we can help to protect the environment. So some of the things that we can do in our daily life include turn off the light when you are not when the light are not in use, and also try to turn off or try to reduce your use of electricity at your home, because the more electricity that we need, actually we have to burn more fossil fuel for that. And by doing the burning of fossil fuel, we are trying to create a large amount of carbon dioxide that we do not want. So try to bear in mind for those measures that you can actually do and try to practice in your daily life in order to save those corals. Although they may be very far from us, but our very small action can actually make a very great impact. For other kind of action that we can do is actually try to learn more about the corals and try to tell people about the situation that the ocean has. So I can share my own experience with you guys that before really doing environmental education, I was studying in a university, having a major in biology, and I never actually been to the coral reef or even do snorkeling in my life. And after that, after my biology class, when I joined as an environmental educator, I tried to snorkel a little bit near the coastal area, and I found coral reefs are really amazing. And I had a lot of different kind of memories and I have different knowledge about coral reefs. I try to figure out what should I do in order to help those environments. So I ended up trying to join a lot of organizations as their educator and try to spread the word about coral reefs and even wetlands around us. So I try to transfer my knowledge or try to tell people the thing that I know and try to encourage people to join me as well. So this is something that you can actually do with me. So what you can do is try to learn more about the coral reefs, try to talk to your friends about what you have learned today, and try to do something in your daily life in order to save those animals inside the ocean, including some sustainable choice or doing sustainable actions like turning off the lights when not in use. And of course, you can actually go to our YouTube channel and learn more about the ocean, as well as going to our education.ocean.org, the website that we have, in order to learn more with interactive games as well as interactive section with our educators as well. So these things that can actually help us and also help the animals in the ocean. So why not doing it? So I want you to think about what actions can you do and try to type it inside the chat box to let me know what uh, actions that you can try to do in order to save the ocean. Okay, so I saw a question from Lauren. Is coral poisonous? So for corals, they do have their own stinging cells, and for those stinging cells, it's actually very sensitive for the animals that live inside the ocean. But for human, when we actually touch those corals, it only have the like stingy feeling, but not very strong. It's not poisonous for a human, but sometimes it causes allergic reaction to some of the for the people too. So when you go to a coral reef or when you go to some coral coastal area, try to be careful not to touch them. Is one of the safest acts that we can do to protect ourselves as well as the ocean. And ooh, we can try to canoeing instead of using gas power monitor in like to fish. That's a good idea because I know a lot of us actually rely on fishing in order to get food as well. So try to canoeing is one of try to do canoeing is one of the best choice in my mind as well. Ooh. Biking instead of driving. Ooh, that's cool. So right now I try to do more biking as well because of the virus. For public transport, it may not be a very safe option for me to get to the aquarium. So I try to bike a lot now, and it saves energy too. Get one. So what about solar powered boats? It could be an option as well. Considering of the cost, you may have to think about the cost, but it's a very nice one if you have the solar power system too. Yeah, I saw from Tickets that don't push any don't put any trash in the ocean is one of the good idea as well. So if we're going fishing, try to pack all your fishing gear away or back home when you have done fishing, and try not to leave any of the rubbish or even fishing gear behind, so that less animal will be trapped or less animal will be affected by those fishing gear. It's one of the good actions that we can do while fishing.
So, boys and girls, what we're going to do now is thank Nicole for her amazing presentation. We don't have time to ask all those questions, but maybe ask Katie to share her screen so that she can show you where you can send some questions, and I'll send them on to Nicole, and then we can send them back to you. And so Katie, can you show that? And everyone says, thank you. This was great. Nicole, can you hold up the coral one more time? Because you held it really fast and we didn't get a chance to see it.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm just figuring it out here, Mally. Just give me 1 sec. I'm going to reclaim the host role.
Yeah, That's great. So can you see all the little where the little animals live? Yeah, thanks, Nicole. So the animals would be hiding in there. Tristan says he still remembers you from last week.
Oh, thank you so much. Glad to see you again.
Okay, so boys and girls, we'd love you to join the Connected North class, and this way we can send you a certificate in a little, in a few weeks when you've done, when we're back to school, so that your teachers will know that you did some learning with us. So you can go to join the class at connectednorth.org at home, and you can also send pictures to me and to Katie by going to the contact us. And even today, if you want to draw a picture of what you learned about the coral reef, or maybe something that you can do to take action to help the coral reef, you can send them to us. So we want to see pictures and stories or photographs of you doing cleanup by your lakes and rivers. That would be great to see, and we'll share them with Nicole.
Yeah, for sure. I would love to see them as well.
So boys and girls, we're going to say thank you now. At what time is the zoo, Katie? At 12 or 11?
11. So in 20 minutes, we're going to be joining with the Toledo Zoo, and we're going to see some elephants.
Elephants. And then we're going to see Nicole later this week as well, right, Nicole, or later today?
Yeah, later today and also throughout the week as well.
That's right, throughout the week as well. Oh, Weston, that's too bad, but maybe you can come back and see Nicole later. And you guys know that everything's posted on connectednorth.org. So we'll see you guys later. And thanks so much, Nicole.
Have a nice day, everyone.
You too.